Yeah, if we're all settled, we could start with the session. Let me take this opportunity to greet honorable members present here, the Honorable Premier and your entourage, and our support staff. We are going to get started with the session, and the agenda is as reflected on that platform. Without wasting time, I will declare this meeting officially open. And as I welcome every one of you into this meeting, it's a session that is meant to ensure that we are able to receive briefing from the Office of the Premier. As a committee of the legislature mandated to do exactly that, play oversight role over the Office of the Premier, we are here to receive their presentation from the Premier's office on the 2025-2026 annual performance plan and budget. And our task is also to ensure that we are able to scrutinize their presentation, of course, so that we could say we are comfortable with what is captured in the presentation, or if there are issues that we might not be settled with, obviously we'll be able to raise them with the Office of the Premier. We appreciate the presence of the Premier. I know that we should have met last week and it wasn't possible. We had the meeting had to be rescheduled to today. We are grateful that we are here, all of us. So you are all welcome. This is our session, and we must feel free to participate. So, like I indicated, that I won't waste time much more taking cognizance of the fact that we are from other areas dealing with some tasks, and we might have a challenge of some of us being tired. So we will proceed and go straight to the issues. On number 3, like I indicated previously, that it's long that we've been meeting. It can't be correct that whenever we meet, then we say we introduce one another. It can't be correct. I will move straight to apologies. Ndatekana, from our side.
Good afternoon, Chair. I did not receive an apology from Honorable Nembu Mbuluni. He might be on his way coming. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no thanks. I'm being advised to say that we might need to have the agenda confirmed, and that item seemingly it's not there, but I don't think it will be proper for us to move and proceed with the agenda without having it confirmed. Okay. I will then request honorable members to confirm the agenda as captured. Honorable Wilson.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm happy to accept the agenda as it is laid out there. I will support it. Thank you.
No, thanks, Honorable Wilson. Any seconder to the move? Honorable Nachifeve? No, thanks. Honorable Nachifeve for seconding the agenda as captured. I should think with From our side, we've already dealt with the issue of apologies. I would allow the Office of the Premier to attend to issues of apologies if there are any on their side. Office of the Premier.
Afternoon to all the members of the Portfolio Committee and also the staff of the legislature and the DG and the team. From our side as the Office of the Premier, we don't have any apology.
No, thanks, Honorable Premier. We will then move with speed to briefing by the Office of the Premier. I would then take it back to you, Honorable Premier.
Thank you once more, Chair. With your permission, Chair, I will ask our Director General to can take us through the presentation.
Okay, well, thanks.
Thanks, Honorable Premier. Greetings to the Honorable Chair and Honorable members. May we proceed to the next slide? As per the directive of the Honorable Chair, I will try to talk through those areas of focus, notwithstanding the guidance that we need to manage time. Then towards the end, especially with regards to item 7, where we'll be presenting the quarterly and annual and quarterly performance targets, I will just talk through that without necessarily going through each specific item, because I think the strategic thrust will have encapsulated most of the issues. Then, with regards to the introduction, as the Honorable Chair has already alluded to, we are basically, slide number 4, we are basically dealing with the APP for 2025-2026 financial year, which was indeed tabled initially on the 27th of March 2024. Of course, there were other subsequent presentations to comply with the legislation, but the thrust is basically the same. And bearing in mind that this is the first financial year for the current term of the administration, we'll also elaborate on the 2025-2030 strategic plan and the high-level targets of the LDP. Then, with your permission, Honorable Chair, I'll move from a premise that the honorable members are familiar with the mandate. Then I will not necessarily bore you with the details. Then we can move to slide number 7, which deals with situational analysis. Number 8, as we were dealing with the review of the strategic plan, we took into cognizance major policy developments and trends that have got an impact on the socio-economic outlook of the province. Then part of which was the Census 2022, which, as the honorable members are aware, part of the issue was to indicate or how many people are actually residing in Limpopo. And then the statistics indicated that the population of the province increased by 1.2 million people between 2011 and 2022. And the province is now the 5th biggest province in the country. Then, but because we have shared the slides, I will not necessarily go into details, except to say that in terms of the national groups, others will say in terms of race, the Black Africans are in majority at 96%, and then other national groups includes the white community, which is the second largest, at 3.1%, and people with Indian or Asian origin at 0.5%, and then the colors community at 0.3%. And of course, we are one of the most diverse province, including even in terms of the language question. With regards to, I've in a sense dealt with that aspect in terms of the population estimates, and then our contribution to the national landscape, to say we are the 5th largest in the country. And then as far as the population dynamics are concerned, in this context we are referring to age between children, the youth, and the elderly. We are one of the provinces which is predominantly youthful, whereby 33.2% of residents are under the age of 15. And slide number 10. Yeah, that's where we are. And which then has got a bearing in terms of our long-range planning. It means that we need to invest primarily on education and skills development broadly. Of course, issues of creative industry should also take a center stage if we really want to be responsive to our population dynamics, which is predominantly young or youthful. Slide number 11, basically in line with what I've just said, the province being very youthful, then it means that there is also a huge cohort as a strategic challenge of young people who are neither in employment, education, and training. And therefore, it means that this is an area that requires targeted attention. And of course, since the 6th term of the administration, the province has developed a youth development strategy. But the key question which is now arising is to say, are we effectively and efficiently implementing the strategies to have an expected outcome? Then that's an area that we'll want to deal with going forward. And in terms of the spatial dynamics, in other words to say, if you have got approximately 7.8 million people residing in Limpopo, where are they concentrated on? The stats, SA has also developed a report which is actually a component to Census 2022, where it gave a national spatial distribution in the country. And then they've identified 17 growth points, if you like, whereby on at least 50% of the South African people are staying in these spaces, the majority of which are the metros. But then the interesting development is that Polokwane has joined the queue, Fetagomutubatse has joined the queue, and Thulamela local municipality has also joined the queue. Unlike in the previous census report, whereby it was only Polokwane which was actually classified as one of the most concentrated regions in the country. And then what it also means is that the rate of urbanization in the country is actually above the national average. I mean, the continental average, and people are more and more concentrated in the urban centers. Then if we deal with spatial development trajectory, we need to then bear this aspect in mind. It's just that time is not there. Sometimes when you deal with issues of space economy, but I'll try to manage that. Because I was going to say that maybe in passing, sometimes at the political trajectory level, our political leadership, because of our history, tend to be more biased to say, no, we need to focus in the rural areas, because that's where traditional leaderships are located in. But the reality, the space economy tells us otherwise, to say people are more and more urbanized. And then you need to respond to that, because if you don't respond to that, in the foreseeable future, you may have a crisis of urban decay, where as it manifests itself in other city centers, high level of homelessness, high level of crime, and then etc. But then as a province, we have got that relative advantage because the urban edge is just beginning to develop now. Then it's upon us to plan ahead and in advance. Then the last point there is the ramifications of Thulamela, because the leadership is aware that we are focusing on the Messina-Makhado corridor through the SEZ. But then what it then means is that if this SEZ program succeeds, you may end up having an integrated region which encompasses Thulamela, Messina, and Makhado corridor into one urban region. And then as we then plan, reflect on the long range, the size and shape of the local government, those are the issues that should actually be taken into cognizance. And then in line with that, as I've just made reference to that, slide number 13, you then find a situation whereby the province has developed the Limpopo Spatial Development Framework, which clearly says that we need to have a targeted focus on these three municipalities, however, without excluding the others that have been affirmed in the previous studies. Polokwane as a city, which has got a huge potential to become a metro. Fetahomutuwaze, which is hosting the envisaged SEZ, and I've also already made reference to Thulamela. Of course, there are other regions that were reiterated for in the past, Mogalakwena, etc. Then, which means that if we manage these regions well, economic spaces well, the overall impact will actually be very higher. And if we mismanage these regions well, the overall negative impact will equally be higher. Then that's basically the thrust of the matter. And then on education, slide 14, it reaffirms the centrality of education, especially in the foundation phase, as a building block to ensure that universal access of quality education. And then slide number 15 deals, as I indirectly dealt with the matter, deals with issues of state of service delivery in the local government sphere. But the key issue there is that the province continue not to do well in terms of provision of quality water as a service to both business and the households. And then we are actually lagging behind. Actually, the province that we are relatively better off without celebrating anything is the Eastern Cape in terms of access to piped water. But all other provinces are above us, and we are also below the national average. And as the Honorable Premier often says, that if we turn around water provision in the province, then the impact will be highly positive or extremely high, because all the surveys, including Stats SA reports, confirm that water continues to, or access to water continues to be a problem in the province. Then with regards to energy, in terms of electricity, we are doing relatively well there. And then refuse removal, we are also lagging behind the national average. Then the next slide, slide number 17, deals with the issues related to unemployment rate, where we use the latest quarterly, Stats SA quarterly report on labor force report, when we're finalizing both the strategic plan and the APP, which is Q4 in 2024. The red highlight there, the middle where it says RSA, it represents Republic of South Africa. It indicates that in terms of the official unemployment rate during that period, the Republic was at 31.9%. And then any province which is below the RSA, it means that the figure was more or less similar or below the national average. And then Limpopo during that period were at 31.9%. And then obviously led by the, and I'm saying obviously because it has been a trend, it's not a political statement. The Western Cape has been on the lead, where the official unemployment rate was at 19%, followed by Northern Cape at 27%, KZN at 28%, Limpopo at 31%. The national average, at the risk of repetition, at 31%. Then all these other provinces that are above the RSA, it means that the official unemployment rate was higher than the national average. Like for instance, if you see as a reference point, Gauteng, which is immediately after RSA, was at 34.4%. However, another important point relates to an expanded unemployment rate, meaning that although in terms of the official unemployment rate, the Limpopo in comparative terms was doing relatively well. But when it comes to expanded unemployment rate, that's where we then encounter challenges, because we were at 46.5%, which is one of the highest. I think we were the second high, the fourth highest. Like if you check, Northwest was at 52%, and then Eastern Cape at 47%, Mpumalanga at 47%. Then Limpopo comes in. Then that's the issue which we need to be more assertive on, to make sure that as we are reducing the official unemployment rate, we should equally reduce the expanded unemployment rate. That in that way, then the impact will be felt across society. And then the next slide deals with employment by industry, without necessarily going through each sector. The point that I wanted to make is that in terms of our growth development trajectory as a province, we always emphasized agriculture and mining and tourism as the drivers for job creation. However, statistics tell us otherwise, to say that over a period of time, the agricultural sector has actually been leading to job losses, although it still has a huge potential to absorb a significant number of the unemployed workers. But then the issue is that if we want to nudge into that, then we need to be very conscious to make sure that our vision translates into reality. Equally so, the mining sector. Mining sector over the last 10 years or so, it has been actually going through job losses, because the sector is becoming more and more capital intensive, which means that we cannot rely heavily on commodity production itself as a driver for job creation. We need to be more aggressive and to deal with mineral beneficiation. And equally so with agriculture. We need to be more assertive to expand the agro-processing. And then the third sector, but in terms of our industrial strategy, we said that we need to expand the manufacturing sector, which in my view is actually a correct posture, because the manufacturing sector by its nature is both labor intensive, and it is also able to attract private sector investment if it is well coordinated on the side of the state. Then those are the more like a yearly trend, but because of time, I will not venture into it. Then with regards to slide number 20, with regards to infrastructure development, we have actually gone a step further by identifying key catalytic projects across the space that which are currently under implementation. But because of time, I will not necessarily go into detail there. Then in terms of the broader economic outlook, I will just be very brief there. Both during the 6th term of the administration and the 7th term of the administration, the province has targeted an average growth rate of 2% to turn things around. But the reality of the matter is that we are still on average around 1%, which then means that we need to then become more assertive and aggressive in terms of transforming the economy to achieve the intended growth trajectory. Because without a sustainable growth, economic growth, we will not be able to create jobs, and we will also not be able to industrialize. I think, in short, that's the key message arising from these 2 or 3 slides. Then I want to move faster there. Then we can then go to slide number 26, where we are introducing the Limpopo Development Plan 2025 to 2030. And in a sense, I've also make reference to some of the targets that are embedded in the strategy. At the key level, the strategy wants to basically to have a vision whereby the province is resilient, vibrant, and prosperous, and inspired by its diverse and creative people and the environment. Of course, considering all the reports that were released during that period, including census reports, general household survey, and other strategic documents. Then we can go to slide number 28, where we are basically sharing with the honorable members the LDP high-level strategic targets. With regards to the growth, GDP growth, as I earlier alluded to honorable members to say, the target is to achieve an average growth rate of 2.2%. And then in terms of the reduction of the official unemployment rate, we want to move from 32.6% to 20%. And then other critical indicators in terms of poverty reduction, access to basic services, etc. But the experience has told us that it is relatively easy to outline the key targets, but it is something else to translate those targets into a reality. And I think that's the challenge that we are basically confronted with. But as we move on, we'll try to articulate on the key pillars that we think they will actually drive this trajectory. Then the first key pillars relates to economic transformation and job creation. As the honorable members are aware that this is the first priority for the 7th term of the administration. Then in our view, we believe that if we intensify a provision of quality and accessible infrastructure delivery program in the province, it will actually help us to catalyze this imperative. And then the second one is the industrialization program, which have sometimes in passing also made reference to it. The issues of the SEZ initiatives with regards to both Messina Mercado SEZ and the Dubatse SEZ. Of course, notwithstanding the challenges related to Messina Mercado SEZ, but then the Executive Council has developed the turnaround strategy to make sure that those issues are resolved. The other one is with regards to revitalization of the industrial parks, which is an ongoing program across the province. And then the Executive Council has recently adopted the Provincial Renewable Energy Strategy. Then in the current term, the idea is to then translate that strategy into a sustainable program for implementation. And then issues related to integrated skills development program, focusing on the youth who are neither in employment, education, or training. Of course, without necessarily excluding other pillars. And three, upscaling the agricultural commodity production as a foundation to venture into agro-processing. Issues of tourism development, and then anchored into that is an imperative to review and implement integrated creative industry master plan. Because in the past, we were actually focusing more on traditional aspects of tourism, where, for instance, visit to like Kruger National Park and other tourism attraction areas. But we have now concluded that actually this sector is broader than that. We need to also go into music, film industry, arts and culture, etc., so that you have got a broader impact. Hence, a decision to establish the Limpopo Provincial Theatre as a pillar of catalyzing the creative industry sector. And then, of course, another one which the honorable members always make reference to is a need to turn around the 3D entities. Your leader, your girl, so that they are able to play their strategic role in the economy, rather than to be more like a part of a social security system, whereby when you don't know where to take Mr. Nchavelento or go leader. But while the mandate of leaders is to drive the industrialization agenda. Then on matters related to social development, as I earlier alluded to, is to upscale a sustainable provision of quality health and education services, because this is a pillar for all the three strategic priorities. Without education, you will not be able to have a productive workforce. Without a productive workforce, then you will not be able to drive economic development. And then, of course, equally so, we can't claim to build a ethical, capable developmental state without provision of quality health services and quality education services. And then the other one under social development is that integrated support or focus on youth, women, and people living with disabilities. Then under a capable state, which in essence is a priority on its own, we will want to accelerate the implementation of a provincial clean audit strategy, which in comparative terms, we are improving on a year-to-year basis, but there is still a room for further improvement. Then the other deliverable is to review the impact of the provincial support and oversight on local government within the IGR and the DDM approach. Because at face value, which will be tested as we do this exercise, it looks like the local government sphere has regressed in the country in terms of fulfilling its core mandates. Then hence we are isolating this point as one area that we need to prioritize. Also bearing in mind that the local government sphere will be undergoing a transition come 2026. Then the province will want to be proactive on that. Then the other area, pillar under ethical state is issues of anti-fraud and anti-corruption strategy. And then the fourth one is strengthen the provincial integrated disaster management program. Equally so, this is an area that requires more urgent attention than ever before because of climate change and other related things. Actually, relatively, we are fortunate. I'm not saying we are better off. We are fortunate because other provinces are already going through constant and erratic disasters, particularly the Eastern Cape, KZN, to some extent the Western Cape. Then as a province, we need to be very proactive so that when this moment arises, we should be ready to handle accordingly. Then the fifth element is on the implementation of a e-governance strategy, because also being responsive to the imperatives of the fourth industrial revolution. But interestingly, Honorable Premier and the honorable members, the DPSA has recently released a study just to comparing the provinces on to what extent are they responsive in dealing with e-governance. And then we were surprised to find out that no, actually Limpopo is one of the relatively well-doing provinces in terms of embracing issues of e-governance. But our view is that we should not relax. It's not enough. We still have to be more assertive in terms of dealing with the imperatives of the fourth industrial revolution. Then arising from the LDP, then which is the LDP is already adopted by the EXCO, the Provincial Executive Council. Then we have then revised the strategic plan for the office from slide number 34. But I will not necessarily go through the mundane issues, because I assume that by now the honorable members are familiar with our vision, statement, mission, etc. Then I'll just quickly go into the key issues as on slide 36, number 36. In terms of the impact statement, we, as I earlier alluded to, the intention is to improve the quality of life of the Limpopo people through effective implementation of the Limpopo Development Plan, which then we are now then linking up the MTDP priority 3 and the LDP priority, which is to transform public service for effective and efficient service delivery. Then there are two key outcomes in as far as the office of the Premier is concerned. The first one is building a capable, ethical, and professional provincial administration. Then, of course, for me, a catalyst for that, without necessarily saying we'll wait for that, is if the National Assembly and the President promulgate the Public Service Act, because that's where these key legislative interventions will enable the state, the public sector in particular, to achieve this intended objective. But as long as the current Public Service Act is, then we may not necessarily be able to make a huge impact. Then, of course, the other one is with regards to integrated government in the province, where there we are basically dealing with strategic plans for all departments, entities, and municipalities to make sure that they are in line with the LDP priorities. Then part C is simply going into detailed measurable targets in terms of the APP. And then we on slide 39, we are basically giving a trend analysis in terms of the budget allocations for the Office of the Premier, whereby in 2024-25 financial year, which is, if you like, our baseline year, we will allocate, after the adjustment budget, we are allocated 510 million rands, and subject to validation through the audit process, we're able to spend approximately close to 99% of that allocated budget. Then we deal with the medium-term estimates. 2025-26, the allocation improved from 510 million to 555 million. And 2026-27, we are projecting an improvement to 580 million. And then 2027-28, we are projecting it to 590 million. And then, of course, we have also done it per programs, but to manage time, I will not necessarily go into that, but during discussions, we can elaborate accordingly. And then, in essence, we do have 3 programs. Then program 1 deals with the overall administrative support to the Honorable Premier and the accounting officer. And then, of course, there are then detailed performance targets, but they are essentially articulating the point that I've made earlier on building a capable developmental state. One of which is to a professionalization of the public service sector in line with the national framework on professionalization of public service, which was, the framework was adopted by Cabinet. But my argument is that the impact will only arise if those bills are promulgated into law. But of course, in the interim, we'll try our level best. And then issues of employment equity for women in particular, which the province, the target is standing at 50%, then we are just reaffirming that target over MTF period. And then issues of anti-corruption strategy is more of giving strategic oversight on the key pillars and then over the MTF period. And then other issues which are normally of interest to the honorable members relates to slide 42, relates to payment of legitimate invoices within 30 days. And then we said we want to achieve 100% throughout. And then issues of preferential procurement on women, youth, and people with disability. These are the new target measures that were not there in the prior years. Then they are now factored into the APP. Slide 43. Then slide 43 actually reaffirms the point I've made earlier on ICT governance. Then slide 44 basically then translate those MTF targets into the annual targets. Then with your permission, Honorable Chair, let us just table them for noting without necessarily talking to them. Then program 2 deals on slide 48. Program 2 deals with the transversal support to provincial administration, meaning all departments and the likes, which is more of a coordination function It's not different, in essence, it's not different to program 1, except to say at this level we are now dealing with the entire provincial administration. Then even the issues are more or less the same. Then I will not want to bore the honorable members with those indicators, except others that were not explicitly expressed in program 2. For instance, on the item output 2 there, we are dealing with consequence management framework. As usual, and correctly so, SCOPA and the portfolio committee normally emphasize that the office of the premier must invoke consequence management in instances where HODs or senior management in other departments are not doing well. Then we have developed that strategy. Now we are going to focus on the implementation thereof. Hence, we are saying in the prior years it was not measured on. And then issues of operation management framework. This one is a new measure as stipulated for by the DPSA. And then in the prior year, we used to coordinate the provincial skills development strategy, which was focusing primarily on skills needs for the economy, your agricultural sector, mining, etc. But we then realized that we should also develop a public sector skills plan, which will focus more on building the capacity of the state. Hence, it will now be subject for performance assessment in the current term of the administration, and then in the previous term it was not measured thereof. And then, of course, transformation issues are also applicable. And then these other ones, slide 51, they are also coming back from the previous term of the administration. Yeah, I think those are the issues regarding program 2. And then we translated the multi-year targets into quarterly targets. Then I then present them for noting by the honorable members without necessarily going through them again. Then program 3 starts on slide 59. This is essentially focusing on policy coordination, issues of planning and monitoring and evaluation for the province, and stakeholder management and communications. Most of the items here are upgraded, although we're dealing with them at an operational level before in the prior years. But then the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation in the presidency said no, they should actually be reflected at the APP level because of their significance. The first one is with regards to the IGR regime, issues related to DDM, support on local government, etc. Then we're doing it, but now we have isolated it as a performance indicator. And then the other one relates to the LDP. We used to coordinate the departmental contributions through the cluster POA, EXCO cluster POAs, but now it has been upgraded to the APP level. And issues related to evaluation reports from the monitoring and evaluation perspective. The honorable members will remember that we did submit an amendment in the for the prior APP because of a number of issues. Then now we think that we are ready to deal with it going forward. And then issues of research program, it has been a priority even in the prior years. But here we are being more detailed. And then issues of policy development framework is not a new indicator, then I will not talk to it. Then issues of GIS, Equally so, as the honorable members will remember, this was also an area for amendment for the APP, slide 62. And then in terms of slide 63, those are issues of integrated infrastructure master plan. It is continuing from the prior years, then I will not regurgitate the point. And then the MOU, slide 64 deals with the regional integration and international relations, where the province does enter into memorandum of understanding with the neighboring regions in the SADC, or if you like, neighboring provinces in the SADC region. And we have also developed detailed partnership agreements with some provinces in China. But this one is an ongoing program. It's not a new program. And then 65, we are dealing with ODA, is also not a new program. And then from there, we then translate the targets into specific quarterly targets. Then, with your permission, Honorable Chair and the honorable members, allow me not to go through that. Then strategic risks, and I avoided to go into budget allocations per program because I did give a high-level articulation thereof. Then in terms of the key strategic risks and mitigations, we have developed perhaps as a starting point, we have recently, even at the level of the province, started to develop a provincial risk strategy so that at any point in time, as we monitor our implementation, we know what are the strategic risks at the provincial level. And in addition to that, each department is now expected to develop detailed risks and mitigations to be in line with the provincial risk register. But because the Office of the Premier and Treasury are coordinating departments, you find that most of the provincial risks are actually coordinated by these two entities. And then in the context of the Office of the Premier, as I earlier alluded to, we have identified the ineffective implementation of the national framework towards the professionalization of the public sector as a key risk. And because it deals with state capacity, its mitigation plan is residing with the Office of the Premier. Then, as a subsect to that, issues of corruption and unethical behavior in the public service is also another area that we thought we need to, the Office of the Premier must coordinate its medication, meaning that these risks are transversal in nature. They are not necessarily dealing with the Office of the Premier as the entity. They are provincial risk that needs coordination from the Office of the Premier. Then there is an issue related to integrated governance, if you like, in the province, where sometimes you find that the APPs and strategic plans are not responsive to the LDP imperatives. Then the Office of the Premier is mandated to ensure that integration or alignment. And then weak tracking and reporting mechanisms, especially in the context of the local government sphere, where you rely heavily on the media or there is a crisis in this municipality, rather than to have a system that can generate that intelligence in advance. And then I think those are basically the substantive issues that I wanted to isolate. We therefore recommend the committee to consider the 2025-26 APP and budget for the Office of the Premier. I thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Honorable Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Premier, for for this presentation of the APPs and budget to the committee members. I should think they've been noting issues that they would want to raise. Could they be either for clarity or they would want to engage on them? I should think the DG has gone at length to deal with the matters that we were anticipating as the committee. And he has also made mention of several new targets that have been crafted. I should think they are meant to sharpen the Office of the Premier to be able to address some of its responsibilities, such that we can ensure that our people in Limpopo get the services that they require. I would then afford honorable members to engage the presentation from the Office of the Premier. I would note honorable members who would want to speak on the issues. Honorable Wilson, Honorable Mapolo, Honorable Mukwele, yeah, it's almost everyone, I should think so. Honorable Wilson.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you to the Public Administration for the presentation. I have a few concerns. The first one being departments with qualified audits, particularly education, social development, and public works. Those are very, very key sectors in terms of development and socio-economic upliftment, and certainly protection of our people. The fact that they are sitting with qualified audits is deeply concerning, and I want to know what is being addressed to do that. And of course, our 3D entities, LEADER and the other ones associated to that, they are simply not pulling their weight. They are simply not supporting themselves. And I think we stated it clearly in the House this morning that if they cannot sustain themselves, they cannot be bailed out. And there comes a time where we've got to draw a line in the sand to say here and no further. I want to talk on NEET, the unemployed and not in education or training. We're above the national average at 32%. I think that is alarming. And 50% of our working age youth are unemployed. It's a terribly high statistic, and it's deeply concerning. But attached to NEET, and that's my other concern, Premier, you have talked extensively about increasing the pass rates at matric, yet again. But if you take NEET into account, and we've got kids between the age of 15 and 18 not getting an education, and you look at the expanded rate, that then becomes very difficult. And my concern is why are there children between 15 and 18 not in school? Why are they not there? And do you have some idea or indicators on which we can monitor this? And I'm talking about things like child-headed households, grandparents that are raising children, who don't have control over those children to make sure that they get to school. And on quality of education, are we getting, or can we get, if you have them, Premier, reports by districts and schools of the fallout rates of children in matric, and what are the schools doing in consultation with the parents? I'm not entirely blaming the school, and I'm not entirely blaming the department, but I don't think there's enough consultation with parents and communities with the long-term effects of this kind of situation. Because without an education of any description, and certainly without a matric, and I mean the standard job description today for a vacancy calls for a matric, and yet we've got all of these children who are not even coming close. In fact, by the age of 15, they've fallen out. Obviously, on your public sector plan, you have given us some targets to monitor. I think that, you know, this we need to follow very, very carefully for monitoring and evaluation, the same as the institutional development plan. And then on the promotion of good governance as a whole, from departments to municipalities. And I have a concern here, Premier, and I know you will give us, and somebody else is going to ask it, for an update of the water rooms. And one of those is Vembi or Mikado, and I think you've had 1,001 messages from me with regards to the situation there. But the Minister of Finance on the 30th of June, the Honourable Gordon Ngwana, wrote to Minister Schlabisa saying that there is persistent failure of 39 municipalities to pay water boards, and or third parties like pension funds, medical aid, SARS, and the AG of South Africa, and or to adopt funded budgets. 3 of those 39 municipalities are from Limpopo, namely Sekhukhune District, Greater Letaba, and Vembi. That name just keeps coming up, Vembi, who have not paid Lepeli water. Vembi, 164 million, Sekhukhune 244 million, and Letaba 69 million. Now here's the concern, Premier. The instruction from Minister Gordon Ngwana is to stop the transfer of the 7th July tranches of equitable shares and all grants to these municipalities. Now already we're talking about 3 municipalities that are in desperately dire straits, and now their grants and equitable shares are being withheld by the minister on the grounds that they have not paid the water boards. And I think we should be desperately concerned. Those municipalities are already in severe trouble and struggling to deliver services without their equitable grants and their shares. That is going to hinder service delivery all the more. And the people are not going to blame Minister Gordon Ngwana, they're going to blame us as the provincial legislature. And then tied to that, and it's Vembi yet again, there was media this week that the staff of the Vembi municipality have downed tools and requested the dismissal of the municipal manager in Vembi. I think we have a severe problem in Vembi. I think this needs to be addressed. We've talked about it often. Nothing is changing at Vembi. It's actually getting a lot worse. And I think that we need some interventions, very serious and urgent interventions there. And then just briefly, and I know that there's a lot of questions from the rest, so I will close here. Your legal representations, the costs of the cases particularly, and I think the 2 big ones are health and sports at the moment. My concern there is that your 24-25 budget was 23,841 million. But in this financial year, it's going down to 16 million. Is that sufficient to cover these legal costs? And is the Premier in a position to give us an updated list of what these cases are about, where they stand, and what is the likely results of these matters in court? I thank you, Chair.
No, thanks, Honourable Wilson. Can I give Honourable Mapolo?
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, colleagues from the Portfolio Committee, the Premier, the HOD, and their staff component. No, thank you very much to accord me this opportunity. The first one is on the issue of GAL. GAL, I don't know as to whether the Premier is aware in terms of the level of qualification and competency within that institution. I can't go deeper to say it's one of the assets which I think all of us were relying on. We can't be defeated by the private or independent groups as government, and I think when the Premier is going to respond to this, really, I hope today I will raise this matter for the last time, and hoping that things will change. The other issue, we speak of access to water, not only access to water, also potable water, and I'm worried we're not doing well at the level of the Blue Drop. And apart from that, even if our people doesn't drink clean water, my concern is, as the office of the Premier, when you identify the source of water in our province, are we not identifying also stolen water? Stolen water in the sense this, of illegal cashments, illegal dams. Can we be provided in future? Who are the culprits? Is this agrarian farmers? I don't like to say, I would say true, but there are many who are doing that, Premier. And my take is that we must be told who are the culprits. And also the other issue. The issue, I think I need to be cleared, especially on the OPEX and capital budget. I need to know through you, Premier, as to whether are we at the right level in terms of expenditure related to employees in the province. Because to my knowledge, we might be above the average 73% of the budget directed to the employees. I must be corrected and be guided accordingly. One of the issues that I wanted to raise, Premier, is the issue of 3 repeated offenders of your departments, especially on SDIPs. That's your COGSTA, that's your health and education. What steps have you taken? And I think we should make sure that these offenders are really corrected. I think one of the issues that I wanted also to raise is I was listening to the HOD of our province, Premier, especially on the issue between the development of rural and urban spaces, especially around the economy, as indeed practically we'll say most of the youth are flocking to urban areas. And one of the things that I will concur is that indeed, when you visit the villages, and I think that study must be taken. It's serious. I thought it was one area, and I came to another area, and I came to the third one. I said, this needs more attention. I don't know what was the reason, but I don't think it must be investigated. And I think the last one, which I think the Premier, you believe in socialist ideals, and I think you, and you know I'm coming to that. Because you are next to the red. I need us to take this matter of the youthful province, our plans 2025, 2030, as to whether will be they able to answer to all the challenges that we are currently facing. I'm saying this because when you say we need to industrialize and all that, those are things that might take a bit of years. Now, what are the immediate steps that we can take and reduce this alarming rate of unemployment. I think if we can check, I don't say we do away with tenders because it's my policy, but can't we then start to phase out certain disciplines, even professionally so, and insource them, and trying to reduce, especially at the level of qualified students who are lingering in the street. One was giving one example, if I may allow it, to say, you get to a particular municipality, they've got disciplinary cases. The majority of those cases will be presided by individual firms. But when you go to the database of that municipality, you get the majority of unemployed have registered in the database of that municipality as lawyers. Then, therefore, I thought, for instance, if it was possible also, when we face out this thing of tenders, but not only also facing out if the status quo to fight with the government, but can't we start making sure that even at the level of water and sanitation, we make sure that we strengthen that arm and capacitate the state, because that is the #1 challenge that is facing our province. Therefore, I think this is my last parting shot to say, can't we start insourcing all these students who have done water and sanitation, especially looking at the growth point of our province, and try to attract those students along those lines. And I think I've done my part. Thank you very much, Premier and Chairperson.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon, Premier and your entourage, and honorable members and staff. Firstly, we want to welcome the presentation and want to raise one or two issues on the need. It is true, Chairperson, that indeed we have got a lot of people when you walk around the street in the village around 11 o'clock during the week, you see so many people going up and down, young and old, which tells you the crisis that we are having. And a 15-year-old or 17-year-old practically can't be employed. Supposed to be at school, but they're not at school, many of them, because of many factors, socioeconomic factors that they find themselves in the drug abuse, the Nyaube boys and all those people. And even this time it's no longer Nyaube boys, they are Nyaube girls as well, who are so frustrated and can't be assisted. And the other issue is what is facing us on those who qualify to be in employment, but they are not in employment. But I want to raise an issue that during the presentation, during the briefing, the issue of Limpopo Public Sector Plan. How are we intending to continue with that plan, or how are we taking it forward so that it addresses some of these issues that have been raised? Previously, there was this committee called Limpopo Skills Development Committee, which was to identify the skills that we are having in the province and where we have scarce skills that we need to prioritize. And different sitters will be invited and pledge on their role, what they can do. The last time a DG, that was chaired by Mr. Tamar. I think if we can revive that committee, so that as we plan, we have a direction. So that as we look at the need, we will say this was supposed to be at school, they dropped out, and sometimes it's no longer possible for them to go back to school. But what do we do with them so that at least we rehabilitate them in terms of developing them and having certain skills that they can be able to live. So the sitters, I think, are taking a back seat now. They are not assisting the province in terms of developing and training the people to ensure that at least they have a particular skill. So I think if we can revisit the issue of sitters and their role that they must play, and they be reminded that they were established for a purpose, and let them do what is supposed to be done. So that we have got a lot of young people in learnership and they acquire certain skills. But the challenge, education, we are doing very well. We are producing quality metric. Those who are excelling, they are admitted in the universities. There is an average learner or an average achiever in the country. Even now, during this enrichment, there will be centers for high achievers and low achievers. There are these average people, and they are in majority. They are going to pass definitely, but they will pass with average marks, and they will not be admitted in the university. They have passed, and then they are the ones who are forming a bigger part of this 31.6% of unemployment. So if in our planning we target and we look at where we are missing it, we may find that the portion is for the average people, which are in majority. Slide number 18, you indicated the potential sectors for growth in Limpopo. It's true that agriculture and mining can increase or can improve our economy. But the challenge is that we don't look at factors that can enhance that growth. For example, with agriculture, we talk of agriculture for employment. It's employing majority of our people. And those people, most of them are unskilled. And we are happy that they are able to get employment. But if we look at the contribution generally, and that is why many people were surprised when agriculture its contribution was very less. It's true, it can go up. Why? Because those people who are in possession of land and producing, they are, one, they're exploiting workers. Workers don't have buying power. And if you don't have buying power, obviously the spaza that you are going to buy or wherever you are buying, they can't make a lot of money because you are exploited. But secondly, the issue of land that we usually don't talk about. This crisis that we are having now, unemployment, if we address the issue of land, our people can plow their fields if they are supported. And they can't cry for, say, some of us when we grew up, our parents were not working. They were just plowing in the field. And then, they never complained about being unemployed because they were able to do something with their hands. So if maybe we can target the issue of land, and the report that was given to us previously indicated a very shocking reality of the land in Limpopo. that majority of arable land is still in the hands of whites, and in particular male whites. The 96% that you are talking about, or of black Africans, don't have land. We know that there will be challenges of global warming, water, and all those things. That can be a challenge in terms of farming. But if they can access land or have a piece of land, I think they can be able to do something. And the focus schools, Premier, for agriculture, for example, you go to Kushke, it's a focus school. And you find that there are learners who are doing agriculture and maths literacy. What are you focusing there? Because any school can do that. Any learner, even Lekom Makubichano or Lurileng, can do that. So that learner, when he gets out of Kushke, we have a hope that we are producing learners who can solve our problems in terms of research, in terms of coming up with ways to navigate farming because of the challenges that we are having. But when they go to the university, they cannot even be admitted in any field, agriculture. And if we can zoom in that space of education, and in particular agriculture, then we'll be saying we have got focus schools, it's Europenaima, it's Kushke, it's Merensky, it's all this that we have. But what are they producing? Is it going to assist us? And you find that it is not going to assist it. The other thing is the Limpopo Development Plan. I get a feeling that we did not have an assessment of Limpopo Development Plan 2020 to 2025. Which aspect did we achieve? Which ones did we fail to achieve? And as we get into the 2025-2030, are we considering those which we failed to implement? And if we can just have these plans and just say, okay, it's 2025, it just lapsed, we start with another one. So it means we are just talking about a paper. Hence, there might not be there is a misalignment in terms of the departments, other departments. But if we have got, we're saying we're Limpopo Development Plan, we have a plan, but there is a misalignment. So it means that it does not have, we don't have a plan, because the plan is not the Premier's office plan. It's the plan that must speak to all the departments. So if they are not aligning, so it means the plan is fragmented, and we are unlikely to achieve what we want to achieve. So I think it's a very serious issue that we should take care of. On the issue of the 3D and the issue of clean audits, I think they've covered, but the matter of emphasis is on the local government. Our local government are not doing well. No service delivery. Their audit reports are just terrible. But on contrary, they spend a lot of money on private auditors. The Auditor General report said Limpopo was always the first or number one in terms of the amount, the largest amount that they use for these auditors. At least now we've been overtaken by Northwest. We're the second, but we're still spending a lot of money with those private auditors. But the challenge is that we don't improve. If we're spending a lot of money and now we are saying at least we have got 50% of the clean audits, then it was going to be justified maybe. But the very serious challenge is that those are not transferring the skills to our people who are hired in those municipalities. So it means we're having double parkings in the municipalities, and we are spending the money that was supposed to go to the potholes, to go to water, to go to other service delivery issues. So we need to focus on such issues. And lastly, on the integrated disaster management plan or program, we welcome that program, but we also hope that there's a budget. Indeed, you know, December, January, there will be a lot of disaster, roads, schools, and all those things. So let's ensure that we have got a budget and we respond swiftly to ensure that some of these things will be solved quickly so that life goes to normal to those who are affected. Thank you very much.
No, thanks very much, Chairperson. And good evening or afternoon to the members of the portfolio committees, the Premier, the HOD, and your entourage. Let me also welcome the more intense and elaborative presentation as made by the HOD. I fully concur that we are not receiving this report for the first time, with the exception of some few areas that we have added in terms of the key performance areas. I also want to acknowledge the Census 2022 report with a view that that's the main reason of the statistics is to allow us to plan adequately in terms of the services of the province. And I'm of the view that with regard to the report that you just gave us in terms of the stats, and especially in terms of the foundational phase and all those percentages of the education and the 20 plus, those don't have a formal education, I think that will able to, I just wish that we will, with the Department of Education, will make sure that we plan more, because if we don't have foundational phase, which means we're planning for disaster. But I think if the Census 2022 is able to give us that particular view, we're able to make sure that we plan adequately. And again, in terms of the Limpopo Spatial Framework planning, I think together with local government, we must make sure that we develop a strategy, especially at local level, because currently we're facing the issue of squatter camps, informal planning. I think if we can plan accordingly, according to the Census 2022, the issues of disaster will be minimized, because we're able to plan accordingly, according to what we are having on the ground, of course, being informed. Chairperson, I also wanted to talk to the issue of the employment by industry. I'm not sure as to whether I just keep my mind in terms of the agricultural view. Honorable Mokweli has tried to cover me on some of the things, but I wanted the HOD or the Premier to deal with that or elaborate more, especially on the agricultural contribution of the job losses. I did not understand how part of it, why, so that I'm able, at least I got the mining part of it in terms of the retrenchment and all that thing. So with that, I think it also assists. On the issues of the social development, Chairperson, I'm very much concerned in terms of the, or passionate in terms of the education. Maybe, Premier, if the HOD or yourself will able to clarify on the issues of the special school of the blind in Elim site. Reboni, I think so. I think that school, it was supposed to have completed long time. Last time I had some people, you see, there were kids, the kids that are blind, they were demonstrating on the road. So, and that has attracted, even though I don't know as to whether we have seen it or not. So it shows where people are not happy, and we cannot wait for people to demonstrate at that. Why don't we chip in and check why this school is not finished? Because it's a special school. My understanding is that special school must be treated in a special way. It must be treated in a special way, in such a way we are able to deal with that. Honorable Mukweli spoke about the issues of the agriculture. I just want to put more emphasis on that yes, we've got agricultural schools on high school and so on. Of course, Premier, let me appreciate, maybe sometimes we must not just talk, we must appreciate the TUT that we are receiving at Mopani, Giyani. We are appreciating that because that is a very progressive, it will go a long way in terms of that. But we also want to emphasize or put more emphasis in terms of the agricultural school, high school, not a secondary school. We do have in Marinsky, Mopani on its own, it has got more of agriculture. So in a long run, let's make sure that those schools must have the tertiary school, that if we come from Marinsky, at least we've got the feeder school in terms of that. I think that can also assist a lot. I think, Chairperson, in terms of what the HOD has presented, I want to talk to the last point. In terms of your speech, Chairperson, the speech of the Premier, under institutional development support, I just want to check how will the Office of the Premier ensure that there is an improved monitoring of both provincial and local government. Like I said, Honorable Mukweli has tried to cover it, but I wanted to talk to specific, especially in terms of the current state of water rooms in Mopani, in particular Zanini and Vembe, in terms of working to resolve those challenges of water provision. Because I know that getting to local government elections, if we are not able to deal with these two things, water, we must just close shops. And we must not say because it's local government, it's affecting all of us. Whether you are an official or you are a politician, it's going to affect all of us. So let's make sure that we join efforts and try to resolve on that matter. I think other parts, our colleagues will try to cover, will come if they are not covering me. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Let me start by appreciating and embracing the presentation as made by the Premier's office. Mine is on mineral beneficiation. And I would want to go back to the point as raised by Honorable Mukweli, that if you were having a plan from 2020 to 2025, obviously you need to evaluate, assess, take good things, and implement going forward. So I just want to ask the department, the Premier's office to elaborate on the previous plan. Secondly, you need a think tank of some sort to assist you in implementing your plan. And I hope you heard what is called the advisory council. What is it that the council has done thus far that helped to address issues that were raised in the plan? And coming to mineral beneficiation, what is it that we need to beneficiate on? We have got various sorts of minerals In Limpopo, you have got your PGMs and chrome and other types of minerals. Are we having a commission of some sort to research on what it is that we need to do? Because we'll keep on talking about beneficiation without tangible results on the ground. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Mantata Marcel.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Let me first greet the Honorable the Premier, the DG, and the team OTP, and also again greet the honorable members and all the staff. Honorable Premier, I think many questions have been touched, so I don't want to repeat. But under this governance and policy, I'm very much inquisitive about the last year where the Premier, or our Premier, and Gauteng Premier convened a strategic meeting concerning a plan of a high-speed rail network linking Limpopo and Gauteng. You know, I was very much happy because it has been said that that rail network is going to start in Gauteng and then it will end in Musina. So that's where I was very much happy, and I'm also inquisitive about that. So I just want to know the progress, how's the progress up to date about Gauteng to Musina? Coming to institutional development support, I'm covered. I don't want to repeat. Honorable Premier, I hear us, you know, talking about and crying about unemployment rate in Limpopo. I know that but in Musina, we've got a lot of mines. I heard Honorable Spuru talking about chrome and the like, but I'm talking about things, minerals which are in Musina, and there are many, because we have a copper mine which has been closed, and after closing that copper mine, many people were working there, and there was no problem in that concerning unemployment. And we also have coal mine. In fact, let me not say coal mine. There are so many mines, Vere mine and other mines. I think if we can do something about that, we'll alleviate this problem of unemployment. And Honorable Premier, we are very much rich in Limpopo, especially in Musina, because we have got an alluvial pipe, I think it's a pipeline, which have all these coal, diamonds, and the like underneath. And it starts from Limpopo River coming to Musina. So all these things, if we can maybe have plan A or plan B to make it a point that those mines are opened in order that, you know, this thing or this horror we call unemployment, we deal with it. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
No, thanks, Honorable Mantata. Honorable Premier, I should think you might have noticed that in terms of the issues that honorable members have raised, they are not necessarily about your office per se. It's generally on the basis of the function of the Office of the Premier with regard to its coordination, overseeing these other departments and local municipalities, and monitoring of all those things. So basically, we must indicate, we might appreciate your office in terms of how it's doing things. But of importance, of course, I must appreciate that the Office of the Premier has been able to utilize the budget that you had in the previous financial year. But of importance, it's the impact of that with regard to the issues that honorable members are raising. I would want to check with the Office of the Premier in the previous, it's 2023-2024, we managed to get a clean audit. Can the Office of the Premier, I don't mean you are soothsayers, so you are prophesying, with the latest, the recent financial year, can we be assured that we might get a clean audit as well? Maybe take it further to say, because the Office of the Premier, of course, has got an important role to play in ensuring that it monitors other departments. Do we expect any improvement, do we anticipate any improvements with the audit outcomes with regard to the most recent financial year? I would also prefer that we be favored with the following documents. The Limpopo Development Plan is adopted, the Limpopo Youth Development Strategy, the Limpopo Public Sector Skills Plan. I should think if we might have access to them, it will be easier for us to play our oversight role as a committee. I would also want to pose the question, just an expansion on what other honorable members have raised with regard to the issue of employment in the agricultural sector. To what extent is the employment of illegal foreigners impacting on our own unemployment, on our own youth unemployment in the province? I should think we might need also to look into that if we believe that the agricultural sector should be able to assist the province in terms of alleviating the issues of unemployment. The other question that I would want to pose to the Premier is that the province has held an investment summit, Honorable Premier. What then is the impact of this investment summit that was held in the province with regard to the economy of the province? How is it assisting in uplifting the economy of the province? I should think these are the few questions that I wanted to raise, as most of the questions were raised by the honorable members. I would afford the Office of the Premier then the opportunity to attend to these matters as raised.
No, thank you, Chair. I think you're quite right that ours as a Premier's office, we exist because we need to run the province. Meaning every department, at the end of the day, whatever they do, their accounting ends here. So we can't say this question belongs to Coxstar and whatever, it still belongs here. I will then request the Director General or any of our DDG after the Director General to can respond. I would have loved to hear the CFO committing herself before the Director General can take us through all the responses. Then I will come after. Maybe let's just get the CFO to commit in front of honorable members.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, members and Chairperson. Chairperson, I have to be careful when I respond on this issue, but that is one of our prayers. When we pray every day, we pray for that so that we don't regress, and we come here and you start asking us, why did we regress? But so far, the audit is proceeding well. We have not received anything material that we can say is worrying us and keeping us awake at night. So we look forward to a positive outcome, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Honorable Premier and Honorable Chair. Yeah, we are very optimistic, but normally the AG uses guerrilla tactics. They wait for the last moment, but we hope we'll manage. Yeah. Then, with regards to the substantive issues, I think at the level of principle, we really, or what I can deduce is that most of the issues raised are not necessarily clarity-seeking questions, are issues of emphasis, more advisory to say, as the office, can you indeed focus on the following areas? But then we will still appreciate that. With regards to the audit outcomes, because the question was twofold, on whether the office is going to get the clean audit, secondly, on whether we think the province is likely to improve. And I think it was also raised by Honorable Wilson. We do have what we call the provincial clean audit strategy, which is adopted by the Executive Council. And then upon the approval, we establish a technical task team, which in essence, it is inclusive of all the HODs of department and the CFO. And then the relevant officials in Treasury whom are supporting departments on issues of financial management. In our last meeting, in other words, before the audit commences, we do meet and do a high-level strategic analysis, and then which we did even for the current process. Then there were just few departments which we, out of the qualified ambit, which we were not confident that they will improve. The Department of Social Development, mainly because they still have outstanding audit, I don't know what you call it, inconclusive, because their audit report was not really finalized, because they were still pending investigations. And then the latest feedback, subject to correction, because the MEC did have a formal debriefing to the Premier, and I was not there due to other commitments. It's not because I was excluded. The department could still not find each other with the AG on those issues. And then which means that if it remains inconclusive, the probabilities that those issues will have a bearing into the current audit process. Then the department which we were also not Anyway, although they said that they are confident that they will improve from qualified to unqualified, is the Department of Education. They were confident, but we are just waiting for the verdict accordingly. Which means that, in short, the assessment was that you'll probably have a positive improvement rather than a regression or a stagnation. That's how the analysis was concluded on. But we are waiting for the audit to conclude. On the 3D entities, the sustainability issues of GAL, Limpopo, leader group entity. Like we said in the last meeting, I'm not sure whether we were given the quarterly performance report. We did indicate that, fortunately, this evening the state of the province or budget vote, if I'm not wrong, where the Premier did pronounce that she's going to establish the interministerial committee on the 3D entities, so that she focuses on turning around these entities. And then I think 3 weeks back or so, there was an inaugural meeting whereby this IMC on 3D entities met. And then we are having a follow-up session next week, because in that inaugural meeting, the Honorable Premier and the Honorable MECs, basically the MECs for the shareholder departments, transport, LEDET, and MEC for finance, raised some pointed strategic issues that the turnaround strategy must actually include for. Then, in a sense, we believe that it may be a very protracted process, but we believe that the strategic direction is well crafted. Then on the skills requirements for GAL, whether they are appointing people with the requisite competencies, we'll follow up on that and then give a feedback to the honorable members. Although at the level of principle, the honorable Premier and even the previous Premier for that matter, they've always been consistent that we need to appoint people with requisite competencies. But as the honorable members, you know the terrain is very complex, especially in the local government sphere, whereby despite this kind of directives, but you'll still find a situation whereby someone is appointed without meeting the requirements. Then hence issues of building a capable and professional state is a priority, one of the key priorities in the current term of the administration. And then the dropouts analysis from foundation till grade 12, we have not really done a dedicated study, but the reports that we all over, like when we present the reports, it does tell you that there is still high dropout rate in between the entry grade or foundation phase and grade 12. Then we'll basically pursue it, maybe as the office of the Premier, let's isolate it, whether we can commission a study on this specific area, so that we are very scientific in terms of articulating the challenges thereof. And then on issues of persistent failure of some municipalities to adopt funded budgets or meet the statutory obligations. I don't want to depress Honorable Wilson. Actually, we have done our own analysis as the office. All in all, as we speak now, approximately 15 municipalities in the province do not have funded budgets. They've actually approved the budgets that are not backed up by any cash in the bank. You spoke about threat, that's why I said I hope I'm not going to depress you. This is a structural challenge, like as I said in the opening remarks, to say, in comparative analysis, from a trend analysis perspective, the local government sector has practically collapsed. And then my personal view is that you actually need a 360-degree approach, because there will be issues of governance, there will be issues of municipal technical capacity, there will be issues of infrastructure planning, etc. Then unless we have that kind of an integrated approach, we will not be able to turn around this sector. Fortunately, I've been in the sector before I joined the office of the Premier. I worked for a municipality for close to 5 years. I worked in Coxstar as the DDG responsible for the sector. Then I know what I'm speaking about. But that is my preliminary view, that unless we actually turn around the sector, we'll continuously raise concern about it without necessarily making an impact. Hence, perhaps that's the reason the Minister of COGTA is reviewing the white paper on local government. Because there are structural challenges, but because of time, I think that would be adequate. And because there are structural challenges, whatever intervention you adopt is unlikely to be sustainable. For instance, as you correctly said, if that decision of the minister happens, then the consequential impact of it, people are not going to get services. And then if the residents do not get the services, then it leads to the increase of unemployment, poverty, all those unintended things. It's a very dicey situation. Hence, I'm saying you really need a fundamental shift in the manner in which we manage the local government sphere. And then the issues of legal costs with regards to particularly health litigation, but broadly as a province, we have actually developed a provincial litigation strategy, which, with your permission, Honorable Chair, we can also share it with yourselves so that as you follow through, particularly with the line departments, you can be able to deal with that. But fortunately, the health sector, without upward delegation, the Premier was the MEC there, then she'll probably even be more informed than the DG. And then on GAL, I've already dealt with that. Issues of water, access to water. As we know, this is a local government function. Water service provision is a local government function. Then, in a sense, it then becomes difficult without shifting the goalpost. It then becomes difficult to ensure a sustainable water provision while the local government sector itself has collapsed. Because it is a vehicle through which you can indeed deliver quality water to the households and the business sector. But in the context of the province, the Honorable Premier has directed both at the technical level, both the OTP and Coxstar, and of course water sector, water services authorities, the Department of Water and Sanitation, to develop a turnaround strategy. Unfortunately, it took us long to do it for a number of reasons, but we are at the tail end of finalizing the strategy. Then we believe that by the end of this July, or early August to be more flexible, the strategy will have been presented to EXCO for ratification. Then we'll deal with all those issues. Of course, part of the reports that we receive from the Department of Water and Sanitation is to account on illegal water connection. Who are the culprits, blah, blah. In a sense, Honorable Mabolo, you are correct that the commercial farmers are the biggest culprits. But also because, as I conclude on this point, is that the water license regime remains untransformed. Ne? Then the key issue from a policy development perspective, in my view, is the latter. That as long as we don't transform the water license regime, then we'll continue to have some challenges. On the COE average at the provincial level, by comparison, there was a moment, I may not remember the exact date, but the Treasury can even go into those details, whereby 72% of the total provincial budget was actually consumed by compensation of employees. Ne? I think it was in the beginning of the 6th term of the administration, if my memory serves me well. Yeah. And then the Executive Council then took a decision that no, we could not allow this thing. 72%, and we were the leading province in the country. Because in terms of the national average, if you like, national provincial average, because we are comparing the likes with the likes, an average figure was that 62% was actually the national average. But right now we're at 72%, almost 10% more, if you like. Hence, the Executive Council took that decision to establish some honorable members will remember, to establish the PPMC, where the organized labor was marching every second day to the office of the Premier to say, do away with this thing. But that PPMC has helped to stabilize the COE, because now I think we are around 65% from 72%, né? Which is a significant milestone. But equally so, from the service delivery perspective, because that percentage is what is against what you have as the budget. It doesn't necessarily indicate an ideal ratio between the client and the service. For instance, in the health sector, the nurses are practically overworked because we have contained the creation of new posts because the budget is not there. But the demand in terms of households is increasing. Then these are very fundamental questions that we need to grapple with as we move forward. Meaning that we may think that we have resolved the problem, but then the causal impact is actually dire. Hence, sometimes the labor perspective is also helpful to listen to them, not because I'm associated with the rates, but basically that's the reality. And then on the SDBIP, I think this is a standard question. Yeah, we are working on it, and then in the next quarterly meeting, hopefully, we'll give a sound feedback. Then on the rural-urban interface, you are indeed correct that there are certain public amenities that are no longer utilized for in the predominantly rural villages. But equally so, there is a need for public amenities in the urban centers. Then it needs a conscious, rigorous strategy to say, because it has got the stakeholder implications, to say how do we really deal with this dilemma. Hence, every year in Polokwane, during the school reopening period, you'll find people marching and complaining that no, their learners are not absorbed because they have not been allocated public schools. That's the reality. while we are closing schools in other villages. It's a developmental issue. It's not an easy thing to deal with, but we indeed, it's just that it is not being done. We did, I think last year, we did request the Department of Public Works and the Department of Education to do a holistic audit of the underutilized public schools facilities, because we believe that in the context of youth development imperatives, maybe some of those schools, that infrastructure can be used for other developmental imperatives. Then we will follow up on it accordingly. Then issues, the debate around insourcing, outsourcing, allow me, honorable members, that's a policy debate, perhaps without upgrading the mandate. The honorable premier will deliberate on that. I can express my views in somewhere else, but not here. Yeah, because here I'm a public servant. And then, of course, issues of emphasis on building state capacity, we wholeheartedly concur with that view. And then issues of public sector skills development plan, whether we still have the forum, Limpopo Skills Development Forum, blah, blah. Coincidentally, today, we had a meeting with the SETAs. Last year, the Premier initiated a provincial skills conference supported by the Skills Development, National Skills Authority, which actually oversee the sector through the minister. Then today, we're actually considering the final report. And critical to that is to ensure that there is a resource commitment from various SETAs. Then it is work in progress. Perhaps in the subsequent meetings we'll give you a feedback. But the Limpopo Skills Development Forum is fully established, functional. Unlike before, now it is actually chaired by the DG. The secretariat function is in the DG's, OTPs in the OTP. Unlike before, where it was actually delegated to the Department of Education. The provincial HRD, Human Resource Development Council, is chaired by the Premier. Unlike before, when it was chaired by the MEC for Education. Then it shows the commitment we have on skills revolution, if you like. Then the average achievers, this is also another policy matter, honorable members. The global trend, countries that are doing relatively well, better on industrialization, are actually prioritizing TVET colleges rather than the universities in the higher education echelon. But South Africa, for whatever reasons, we are prioritizing university entrance as opposed to TVET. Then the hierarchy is actually self-defeating for a number of reasons. And it's an issue that we are now aggressive, at least as a province, we want to engage the National Department of Higher Education Training to say, right now we want to build capacity in the TVET colleges. And then, of course, those special schools. And we are no longer even only focusing on agriculture. We have developed a strategy to deal with other sectors of the economy. But obviously, the impact will be felt relatively later. And then I've recently learned that there is another area called community colleges, where people who don't have matric, basic skills. Then we are now engaging the Department of Higher Education to utilize some of the underutilized schools as those community colleges. Actually, we are piloting this idea in 3 schools in the current financial year. I may not remember them from the heart or from the brain, but we can share that information with the portfolio committee if they need it. the comparative advantages around agriculture. I know the agricultural sector is always a shock. When it reduces job, it leads to job losses, we get worried. But what is happening? But the reality of the matter, honorable members, is that agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism sectors are actually labor-intensive sectors. That one is clear, we agree on that. And then, hence we expect these sectors to expand these sectors so that we are able to deal with the problem of unemployment. But equally so, agriculture is seasonal in nature. In other words, when you analyze job creation, it depends on which period are you focusing on. There are certain periods whereby it will actually release labor. Because it's seasonal in nature, it also means that even the form of labor, employment, will also be permanent versus temporary in nature. Because you can't allow the farmers, commercial farmers, to keep that labor force in place while there is no productivity at the farm level. Then that's the point which I wanted to make. That hence, because here we're dealing with quarterly performance, we are not really worried. But if you go to slide 23, it even shows a serious job loss, a negative 15% in terms of the trend analysis. But it is largely because of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. But agriculture by its nature has got the high labor absorption rate. It has got the propensity to create more jobs than mining sector, for instance. My point there is that we need not to worry. But in terms of the provincial comparative analysis, the Western Cape is doing well in terms of the GDP's, agriculture's contribution into the GDP because of agro-processing. Hence, we are saying that as a province, if we expand the agro-processing sector, then it will have a spiral effect even into the primary commodity production. That's the area that we want to actually focus on. But there are issues on land ownership patterns, as the honorable member spoke about. The communal land regime, in many respects, leads to constraints towards commercial agriculture. Then, without necessarily saying, do away with communal land regime, but you need some kind of reforms to incentivize the communal areas to actually reclaim their active participation in the sector. But that is policy debates that need to be considered for. Then I don't want to necessarily venture into that space. Then land ownership in the arable land, the honorable members know better than me, but obviously it's noted, or what are the issues there. Then the capitalization of focus schools for agriculture, as I earlier alluded to, we have actually developed the strategy, and we do concur that for these special focus schools on agriculture, tourism, and mining to be effective, you really need to capitalize them. And then with the limited budget constraints, we'll definitely have to do it over a period of time. The assessment of the LDP 2020-2025 period, perhaps it is a transition matter. We actually did that. We did the 30-year review report. In other words, what was the impact of the developmental state or a democratic state since 1994? We do have that report. We also did a 5-year LDP assessment report. They were adopted by the Executive Council. Then if the honorable members would like us to share those reports, we can easily make them available. But I don't want to go into the findings thereof. But in any way, the findings are what inform the priorities for the second term of the administration. The 7th term of the administration. Disaster management, the EXCO has actually adopted a strategy to say that we need to comply with Disaster Management Act in terms of ring-fencing at least 1%, or is it 1% or whatever figure, towards disaster management. In other words, the current budget, provincial budget, has dealt with that, where the money is ring-fenced for any disaster management eventuality. What we are currently grappling with is to develop the framework, the intervention strategy, because it means that the disaster management centers at the district level must meet certain capacity level. By the way, we don't have a fully fledged provincial disaster management center. Then the idea is to immediately establish it in the current MTF period. I think Rivoni School will follow up on it, and I'm worried. Actually, I'm depressed because this issue was, we made a commitment in the last financial year to say no, we want to make sure that this school gets completed. Even in that other committee, that status on quality of life, they are always raising this issue. Then we'll follow up on it to make sure that these issues are attended to. The TUT satellite campus, on a lighter note, actually it became an initiative of engagement between the province and the Minister of Higher Education and Training, which means that if we didn't prioritize these things, it would have not happened. Then I'm just using it as a reference point to say our skills development forum is very, very effective. Status of PECEC, the Honorable Premier has just approved the memo, the terms of reference, and how it should be reconfigured for. Because one thing that the Honorable Premier identified was that the previous PECEC was a moria of experts, where on average HODs, MECs, and experts will assemble on a frequent basis. Then you could not really, it was as if it's a replica of the ex-Kologotla. Then a decision was taken that let us then do a reassessment and be more focused. And then indeed the terms of reference are finalized, and then on the basis of the terms of reference, the office is finalizing the appointment of individuals so that they are responsive to the terms of reference. We believe that by very soon the process will be concluded. Then areas for beneficiation, mineral beneficiation. We know that, but critical to areas for beneficiation is in terms of the PGM cluster, because that's where the province has got a competitive edge on. Hence, we do have the envisaged Fetahomo SEZ, because at the core of the Fetahomo SEZ is to beneficiate the mineral resources which are endowed there, and even the Messina Mercado SEZ has got that kind of a mandate. And in addition to that, we are currently finalizing an MOU, and I always pose the question to my next colleague, or when are we finalizing it? The MOU with the Department of Science and Technology, because the Department of Science and Technology hosts various research entities. You are CSIR, MinTech, etc. And we believe that this can help us to clearly map out our mineral beneficiation strategy. And then, but the debate is unfolding, and we believe that we are indeed on the right track. The high-speed rail network, interestingly, was it 3 weeks back? Or maybe high-level update. Like we said in the previous meetings, the Premier of Limpopo and the Premier of Gauteng have established an interministerial joint committee, which is actually going to oversee the project, and then supplemented by a technical committee convened by the 2 respective directors general, the DG of Limpopo and the DG of Gauteng, supported by various heads of department and CEOs of relevant entities. At the moment, we have finalized a concept document which does confirm that indeed this idea is feasible. 2, we have finalized the protocol agreement, in other words, the legal agreement to say who is expected to do what. The next leg is to arrange a meeting with the minister, whereby, subsequent to that, we even had a workshop with the National Department of Transport, and they fully support the idea. Then the next leg is to arrange a meeting between the 2 premiers and the minister to then give it a go-ahead. And then it's something that we are working on. But at the technical level, the advice that we are going to give to our principals is that this thing is doable, financially viable and realistic, so that our principal make a determination. Then we are on the right track, the long and short of it. I think those were the main issues that were raised during the discussions. The illegal migrants, the impact on job creation. Studies do confirm that the impact is dire. Just take the hospitality industry, for instance, in Polokwane, not anywhere else. If we go to a restaurant after this session, who is likely to serve you? It's someone from our neighboring states. In the agricultural sector, more than 50%, those are the projections, but we don't have a scientific report. More than 50% of the workforce in the agricultural sector is actually dominated by non-South Africans. But it's more about migration policy rather than labor market policy. And those are the issues that may perhaps need the attention of the relevant national departments. But the Premier always, when there is a PCC, a Presidential Coordination Council, she always raises these issues for the attention of the relevant ministers. The progress on the Provincial Investment Summit, as we earlier indicated for, when the Honorable Premier convened the IMC session, one of the reports that were needed there was to check whether those commitments were fulfilled or not. The long and short of it, perhaps the report was presented, but maybe the Premier will guide how do we approach it. Thank you.
No, thank you, DG. Maybe one just need to start by taking us back to one of the slides wherein we are talking about Limpopo population dynamics. To say, if you look at what Stats SA could find, in this province we've got more Shona-speaking people than you would have Tswana-speaking people. And if you remember, Waterberg region, for instance, district, Lephalale, Bilabila, Tabazimbi, Modimolle, Mokgopo, it's predominantly Tswana-speaking people. But they are 1.4%. compared to Shona-speaking people, who are at 1.6%. Now this is just to respond to the question. Here we're only talking about the Shona-speaking. We've not gone into other neighboring state to say how many will they be. So that poses a huge a challenge, especially when it comes to the jobs that do not necessarily require skills. Because that's where our problem is. A South African cannot compete with a foreign national, especially the one who's not documented, on being what do you call this, a restaurant attendant or a farm worker. Because employers enjoys when they employ somebody without documentation, who can't come and demand their rights in terms of the labor laws. Such that in some instances, the stories that we received from some of the farm workers is that at the end of the month, when farm owners are supposed to pay them, they release dogs for them. And they can't report them anywhere because they don't have any documentation. So at the same time, while the Human Rights Commission continuously say, when you are challenging this, you are being xenophobic, they must also look at the interest of these individuals who are being exploited just because they are looking for livelihood, because economies in their countries are on their knees. So I think we need to also try to balance that, to say why we want to enforce the laws that everybody must here have documents. Because when you have a documentation, nobody will exploit you. You will be able to access the labor laws of this country to say if the minimum wage is 4,000, you must also be paid 4,000. So if you talk to them, you know, I worked in a hospital there, come month end, you will be dealing with a dog bite wound of undocumented. And when you ask them, no, the boss has released the dogs on me. And which results in some of us analyzing this thing of saying farmers are being attacked. And police can't even arrest those who are attacking the farmers. Why? Because you continue to exploit me every month. When you are supposed to pay us, you release dogs on us. We will organize ourselves because we know where you stay. And we know the surrounding. We know the security of your farm. And we'll organize and come in and kill you. And the police can't even get hold of those criminals. So I think it's for the interest of all of us to be able to deal with this. So I thought maybe I should just start there. But there's a critical question that I think Honorable Wilson raised, and also Honorable Mukweli, the DG. I'm just adding and supporting on in terms of audit improvement. We're agreeing, even you, Chair, you raised this issue to say, we seems as if as a Premier's office, now that we've got clean audits, all is well. That's not, it's very painful. What you are saying, it's correct. I keep on saying to DG, you know, a clean audit for Treasury and Premier's office, it's meaningless. If health, starting with education, health, public works, COGSTA, those departments which are service delivery orientated and also carrying almost 80% of our budget. Now, if you want to really talk about the clean governance, it's the day when I get a clean audit in education and health. That's when you'll see me popping champagne to say, we've done it. But for now, we cannot celebrate. I recently had a meeting with the MEC for finance to deal exactly with this matter, to say, you can't be celebrating your clean audit. We want to celebrate because your job is not about you. How many assets do you have? The assets are there in the Department of Education and in the Department of Health. So we have agreed we are strengthening Treasury so that they do their job. And their job must be to go and make sure departments are supported. We need to strengthen the budget unit within Treasury and get people who were very good. We have got, you see, the problem is that when you are good at this, you know, it's like in education, Honorable Mukweli, when you are a very good maths teacher, we promote you and make you a school inspector. You don't know anything about monitoring. You know about teaching. And then the kids, the results, let's just increase your salary in that teaching, as a teacher of maths, so that you don't shift and remain where you are, because the issue is that all of us want salaries to increase as we are improving. So we're working on that to say, how do we then work on treasury and strengthen it, and strengthen our PAG, and strengthen our internal audit? Because I have listened to some of these officials, especially in internal audit. You know, you'll think that they're not part of treasury. They are not there to help provincial departments. You can't have, even today, social development has not resolved its own issues. And you don't see treasury being at the center. I mean, the premier had to go and phone PAG to say, come, help us here. So when social development is threatening to go to court, you can't be taking your own government. A PAG, it's our own. When we take them to court, what are we saying to the public? So we are working on that. We believe that they will understand in treasury that they are not employed in treasury. That is why you find that the HOD for treasury, it's at the same level as the DG. It's at the same level as the HOD for education, for big departments, while their budgets are very small. It's because the job comes with accountability of all departments, not one, that small 200 million. It's not about that. It means they are responsible for the entire 80 billion, 85 billion of the province. So we are working on that. And that also talks to the municipalities. You have raised it sharply. The DG knows I always make a story about this. Our municipalities, their annual financial statement, it's prepared by consultants. I had a session with a group of from SAICA, chartered accountants, the women chapter of it, African women, on Saturday. And I was asking them the questions that I've asked AG, to say where I come from. When we say you are a consultant in the health sector, it means, let's say you are a medical intern and a child is sick. The child comes to you and you can't help the child. You call your medical office. If the medical officer can't help the child, they call a senior medical officer. If they can't, they call a consultant. The consultant means it's a pediatrician. That word in the medical field, when they say you are a consultant, it means you are a gynecologist, if it's a woman. It means you are an orthopedic. But here in the municipality, they say consultant. Check the qualifications of those directors in those companies of consultants. That is why when they develop your annual financial statement, when they prepare it, you still get a disclaimer. When it was prepared by a so-called consultant. Consultant is supposed to be an expert, such that when they develop this, they is not supposed to find nothing. Then when I ask this question, the response, DG, is very painful, is that the real consultants within the accounting profession have left that space of tendering to prepare annual financial statement because it was doing a damage on their profession. So people who are left there, it's anyone who can fill the tender document. So it means we do not have expertise who we are paying millions of rands. That is why it's one of the areas which we have instructed our treasury to say, we've got young, unemployed, chartered accountants. Let's find a way on how to employ them, place them in provincial treasury, and then deploy them to all our municipalities. And because if we just take and ask municipalities to appoint them, they won't appoint them. But if we take them as an intervention strategy, they will go and they prepare the books. And because you must prepare the books of what you know has been happening the whole year. You can't prepare things that you don't know. The CFO here is able to prepare because she has been there. She knows all these transactions have been done throughout the year. Now, as municipality, you run the transaction on your own. And then at the end of the year, financially, you bring somebody who has never been in that space to say, prepare financial statement. That won't make sense. That's why you're getting disclaimer. That is why professionals left that space. So we're really dealing with that. Maybe just to add on the DG, because it's the question that we were asked last time. We then, on Riboni, a special school, we put it, DG, if you remember, as part of our projects for the premier. I'm not sure if it's the same Honorable Metle who asked, because she's very passionate about this. We took it upon ourselves. Maybe just to remind the DG, the problem that we were told, the contract, like all the other projects, because now I've made it my problem to follow up on all these projects that have been there for years, not being completed. On this one, the challenge is that the contractor who was there was found wanting when it came to SARS. And then the Department of Education, through it's an IDT project, it had to be terminated. And after terminating it, they now have appointed a new contract. In this committee, we are fortunate to have His Majesty, Royal Highness. One of the problem is that in that particular area, they are demanding that the contractor must first come and greet. Otherwise, they won't open the gates. And we're telling them that, honestly speaking, this school, I mean, the pain that you are talking about, I once met the kids there, blind, carrying placards. Very painful. So we're saying to the chief, can you really do this? We're bringing a new infrastructure. You are also putting up a block. And then I'm told that it's one of the projects that we'll be visiting, and then after visiting, we'll then give you, because the DG is correct. We said we will look into the matter. You have raised it previously. We will follow it up very closely to make sure that it's completed in time. Maybe to add on the issues of the skills, from what the DG has said. Oh, yes, the investment commitment, I'll come to them. But on this one of the skills, which I'm also equally passionate about, the bulk that pass, and the DG is quite correct. Do we continue to talk about my child? It started with us here. My child is admitted at the university. They come back with a degree. Medical doctors are sitting at the MEC's office. There's no job. But artisans are needed. We don't have artisans within our minds. They are looking for artisans. So the question is the mentality of our education system, which has always been about you must go to the university. Universities is there for lawyers, for doctors, researchers, academics. But skills are within our colleges. And that's what we're saying. When this country came up with the TVET college, again, it was a brilliant, revolutionary idea. But what happened? You now still have public admin at the TVET. This is what I was asking in that Human Resource Council of ours. You are now duplicating the very same thing that we are running away from. So we are saying to Minister of Higher Education, allow us to deal with the curriculum in your TVET college so that it talks to our SEZ. All our TVETs in Limpopo, they must talk to tourism. They must talk to hospitality, because that's how Limpopo's economy is based on. They must talk to mining. They must talk to artisan. That's what we need. You can't be taking a child, paying NEFSAS to go and study public admin. And this is what we are doing. And then later on you said, we've got so many unemployed graduates. They will not be employed because their skills are not responding to the economic challenges that our province have. So we are working on that. Maybe even starting with Focus School, as you have indicated. We are starting there, and I'm glad that both the MEC for Education and for Agriculture, they are working closely to make sure that we do have Focus School. You know, in January, I was with the MEC for Education during back to school. We visited Tom Nodi School. Some of you here were fighting the 30% pass rate to say, hey, how can this government give a certificate to someone who passed with 30%? I've seen it, Honorable Wilson, in Tom Nadi, that it's very much effective. The school here in Polokwane. Those kids are studying mechanical, they're studying plumbing, whatever it is. You know what? Not all of the kids will get 60% or 50%, because not everybody wants to be a doctor or a lawyer. But a mechanical, someone who knows how to fix the engine of a car, you deny them a certificate because they couldn't get 50%. That's unfair. Maybe we need to reason it in that way to say, that 30%, matric pass rate is to give that child who has been in school for more than 12 years, when they leave, they must have something to show. Guess what? Those kids there in Tom Nodi are now employed by Toyota. Here, they are working, fixing engines. Our kids are still looking for space at UCT. Even today, they are not yet admitted with 5 distinctions. So this is what we need to. Sometimes, before we just become lambastic, say, hey, Minister Angie came with this 30%, will her child be able to? Look at countries that have made it. How did they do that? That 30% is not for a child who wants to do medicine. That 30% is for that child who is able to fix my pipe there. We can call and say, come and fix the pipe. There's a pipe best. And they'll come and fix and make their own living. And they go. So for me, I've seen, if we can have many of Tom Nodia schools, we will deal with unemployment, we'll deal with the skills that the economy needs. So that's where we need to be focused. I thought, DG, because I know we are working well on these issues of skills, we need to really focus on that. Yes, the issues of our commitments, we have started, we put up a team, it was followed by the Roundtable Investment Summit. Remember, we had the 120 pledges. To follow up, we called for a roundtable. That's when we had MinTech. And Honorable Spuru was asking a very good, brilliant question to say, what research have you done on minerals that you can beneficiate? And MinTech was there, and CSIR, to share with us some of the researches that they've done, to say you can, I mean, for instance, lithium for the batteries and all those, because it's only through beneficiations that you can sustain the jobs in mining. We can't with the current situation. I met with Anglo-Plat CEO, and he was clear to me when I went there with excitement, DG. So I want you can't just extract our material and export as they are. You need to beneficiate. He asked me a question, am I an industrialist or am I a mining expert? My job is to extract the mineral. Look for industrialists who will help you to beneficiate. So then I said, oh, you know, it's very good to know that you don't know. Then I went to industrialists. Those are in MinTech. They are now going to assist us. You will start to see if we can be able to win. That's why you hear us speaking with painful voices when it comes to our SCZ, to say this time around, we can't fail the people of this province. We've failed them since 2018, but we believe that right now, things cannot be, if it means I'll be changing the board of Musina Makado SCZ every week, so be it. If they've got nothing to show, so be it. If it means we will be suspending GNT and charging the bosses of GNT, so be it. You will hate us, but I can tell you, after some time, you'll now see the light. Because until we get people who understand where we want to take this government towards, the high-speed rail, the DG has explained. One thing I can tell you, the president himself called me and the premier to say this is also his priority. And he even shared with us the painful story of him as a young boy having to travel more than 16 hours from Chiawero to Mpapudi with that. And when he went to China and realized that trip you can do it in less than an hour, and then it's very, very painful, traumatic, to say you have to even slaughter 2 chickens, one for lunch, one for supper, on your trip from Johannesburg to Musina. So Honorable Mahasela, the train will, but also on a painful note, I know just for this week, I don't know how many accidents. I just received one yesterday where 5 people died on that road. The bus and the truck, the bus driver also, we lost a life. And then the day before, we had a family, a sedan, also 4 people lost their lives. You know, almost every second day in that route, people are losing their lives, which these are people who we can offload if we can have reliable rail transport For me, also, the lives of our people is very important, and it can be affordable. Market analysis, in terms of, it will be even more utilized than Gautrain when you look at it, because people can even travel almost every day. I mean, if you stay in Polokwane, you can, working in Johannesburg, you can travel every day. If it's 40 minutes, a train. So we are really working on that. We are, or litigations. The medical legal, we are working on it. It's a long story, which we can't really go on deep, but we're just worried by the fact that there is collusions. I had a meeting with the other day when I couldn't make it. One of my meetings during our discussion with SIU was we spent quite a lot of time analyzing some of these cases where, you pay somebody with disability. When we pay, the bulk of the money that we are paying when we are litigated is towards future medical care. And it's clearly stipulated that if the person is disabled, they must go and build a ramp at home, get them electronic wheelchair, get them future medical. But they visited some of these people. There's no even a ramp. The wheelchair that they have is the one that were given by the very same government from the same fiscus. And the lawyer has disappeared with 50 million. And these people are still going to public hospitals for future medical care. So this is where we have agreed with the SIU to say, if you enter that space, you might be able to assist us to recover a lot of money and take more lawyers to court. So they also promised us, even with other cases, but I was just wanting honorable members to appreciate that on the medical legal, we are really worried about how these things are done. The rest of the issue, the DG went at length to explain. So all I could do was to add on that, just to say to honorable members, we appreciate the work that you do. We know you have been to Musina Makado SEZ, and when you came back, we appreciated the feedback. It helped us to act. Because if you don't go, it's difficult to act. We will be accused of being personal. So you see, Premier is wanting to target so and so. Maybe so and so, it's not what. But when honorable members have gone there and realized there's no work being done, they come and report to the Premier, so this is not happening. I will be able to say, even my bosses, because my bosses is the legislature, if my bosses are saying this it's not happening, we had to act. Lastly, on the disaster, we appreciate because even legislature, 7th administration, for the first time, it has an oversight committee on disaster. I know MEC Makamu has a account here, which we are really appreciating, because when we see what is happening in other provinces, we are not immune, we are not unique. We've seen people are staying in those river banks. When I see Lipalale, those areas, we want to start on a roadshow, on a campaign, to talk to our people, to say, please, those who are staying in these areas, move out. We are no longer in control of nature. Climate change is here, we can't change it. It's very difficult, what we see in Eastern Cape, that you lose 103 people at a go. That is really very, very painful, especially even innocent children being part of that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thanks, Honorable Premier. Okay, Honorable Mkwele.
The issue of our 3Ds and our entities. I thought when you were talking about the issue of GNT, you'll go where I wanted to ask. That we are aware that there are people who are suspended for 3 months. And we know that sometimes the investigation will take a long time. So what we are requesting is that make sure that those are concluded as soon as possible, considering how much those people are earning. For the 3 months, they will collapse the budget there. And that is a concern as well. Or what model are they using to pay entities? Is it not regulated? Because what is a critical issue about the 3Ds is that we are every time complaining that they are not sustainable. We give them money, they are not making profit. But if you look at the salary of the directors, the CEO, they are earning more than the president. So it means that as the government, we are funding their salaries only. And in a layman's understanding, business profit goes with what you can get. If I am able to make profit of 50 rand, I can't pay myself 500 rand. So there is an anomaly there. So if we can arrest that, find a way in terms of legislation to arrest that, we will forever complain about leader, GAL, and all those entities. But lastly, a DG on the issue of land. Maybe I just generalize when I was talking about land, but what I wanted you to note is the issue of land audit. I always talk about it. There is land in Limpopo that belongs to this government. But unfortunately, as government, we don't know how much land do we have and which part of this province do we have land. There is land that is like, there is land that is occupied by the people, just like what is happening in the public works with regards to houses. There are people who are occupying the houses of government. They're benefiting, and some of them we don't even have records of. So when we talk of land audit, let's commission a study on the land that we own as government and check on how can it assist us as the province to grow our economy. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mkwila. I'm not sure if out of what he has said, the Office of the Premier might need to give a response.
Maybe just to simple say the land audit we have had here, we are going to, because the work had already started. I think through the DG, we'll just follow up to say, because Public Works was doing that work, if I remember, in terms of the farms, they've given us preliminary report together working with Department of Agriculture. So we will look into that and take that advice. In terms of the GNT, we are closely monitoring that process. We don't want to interfere so that we don't get accused of interference. But we have been very, very clear. As EXCO, we refuse to give them the money until we see changes. That is why you saw that those suspensions, they happened after EXCO meeting, because we said we're not giving you a cent, so that we give a cent to the same people. Then it was possible to suspend. Then there's a colleague who has been seconded there from leader. In the last meeting we had, we were comforted because he was able to show us the plan, what needs to be done, and say we might see. The immediate task is to rescue with the 93 million. They were taking we were being liquidated, and the committee, the executives that are suspended failed to go and defend our liquidation. And our analysis with a layman's mind, it's simple mentality. Maybe it's because the DG and myself are sensitive when it comes to capitalist, Honorable Mapolo. Our thinking together, I'm dragging him in, it was not my thinking alone, was to say the plan is to liquidate it, sell it, probably sell it to yourself. That's what we could conclude. They would That was the plan. We are not saying it's like that, but we have stopped it. We are going to rescue, because GNT, it's not just an entity, a 3D entity to make money for government. GNT, it's our tool to reduce the cost of living, our number 2 priority. Because if we win with GNT, where you have subsidized transport for your workers, you are then dealing with this challenge, because transport cost, it's one of the number 1 driver, even more than food for workers. Now, when you collapse GNT, you are making workers to suffer more. So that is why we're saying we can never allow GNT to be sold to any private entity. We will defend it and will protect it, but it must be run in an effective manner. We've already approached those with buses who can lease us and start working, and our workers get reliable and safe transport, because sometimes there's a lot of stories there. So just give us a little bit, but we've heard your advice. It shouldn't be forever, people being paid salary sitting at home. It won't happen. We pay people, those directors, money, provided they are able. Actually, they were supposed to create wealth for themselves, but because they are not, why should I pay them and pay the DG far less than I pay a person who, the DG is the one who comes and answer on their behalf. Well, now what they do is to play golf. Thank you.
I should thank you. You have given a very comprehensive answers to the issues raised by honourable members. We would appreciate it, Honourable Premier, if you really must push so that things must work. We know, in as much as you might try to work as hard as possible, there will be a pushback and an unremitting character assassination. That is what you must expect. But we, as the committee, would appreciate to see you pushing so that things get done in the province. We really appreciate your presence and the presence of the entire team here. You attempted to respond to almost all the issues that we've raised, and we are committed to work together with you in ensuring that we are able to take this province forward. I should think that will bring us to announcements, if there are any. I really thank you, honourable members, the Premier as well as his encouraged. The meeting is officially adjourned.